This is what today is about. The Crown has blood on their hands!
Welcome to New Australian Bulletin. Check us out at www.newaustralianbulletin.com. Thursday's day of mourning in Australia for the departed Queen of England proved the perfect opportunity to find out what a voice to Parliament for Aborigines will mean for us. The occasion was marked with the disrespect of the militant left, which has appropriated the Aboriginal cause to promote a Western globalist liberal pogrom against our failing nationhood. Disturbances were coordinated in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Canberra. According to these protesters, the agreed tagline for the provocation was that the Crown has blood on its hands. The Crown's boot is on our neck, they screamed, and we are sick of it. By our, Miss Lydia Thorpe, the Green Senator, indicated she meant the Aboriginal people. Miss Thorpe is half white. She put on a show worthy of notorious vegan protester Tash Peterson, although unlike the latter, she exercised the good taste to keep her clothes on. Lydia Thorpe is not a voice for Aborigines, but she will be if the vote turns against the country. It will be a voice for her, the Greens and all the globalists that can pile on to the distressed national crest. Anyone willing to press the Greens on the question of unfettered immigration will find this their policy of choice. Miss Thorpe's office told one of our team they would prefer immigrants from China, India, Africa and any race except white people. They have no problem with mass immigration, which is ideologically incongruous if you happen to be looking at it from the perspective of Aboriginal self-determination. This is about race hate, but it's about more than that. To the Greens, the Crown represents white supremacy. They said as much. It's pointless attempting to educate the likes of Miss Thorpe about how wrong they are, both historically and literally, because they have a vested interest in that anti-white position. Of course, we nationalists who've stayed quiet over the Queen's death simply say that she left a legacy of multiracial turmoil in England. The disturbances between Muslims and Hindus in Leicester played out while the white Britons were mourning their dead Queen. A more appropriate epitaph for her passing could not be had. The Queen said nothing, while Enoch Powell's caveat about coloured hordes and rivers of blood has become an indisputable reality for England. We don't regard the Crown as pertinent to modern Australia in any fashion other than a titular capacity. So far, retaining the Crown, even without any practical significance for all intents and purposes, is notionally better than creating a republic that might risk having someone like Mrs. Thorpe as its president. Today, the anti-white provocateurs used the day of mourning for the late Elizabeth II. They executed certain acts of vandalism. Naturally, they burned the Australian flag. At other protests, they cut it up. Fake blood was smeared over an emblem at the British consulate in Melbourne, although why we can't imagine, since according to their desires, they're getting everything they want. They want white Australians gone, and that's been happening for decades. The program of Western liberal globalism has seen the cities divided up into ethnic ghettos. Much of our cities, particularly Sydney and Melbourne, barely retain a white character. This all happened with the Queen's blessing, and more so with her son and heir, King Charles III. Yes, he's a right woke tool. If the presence of whites on Australian shores was the cause of the original angst of these vocal cosmopolitan Aboriginal combatants, then they have no qualms about the myriad of other peoples arriving en masse. Given this reality, it's easy to understand the next paradox in all of this. Ms. Thorpe's antics have drawn criticism over the time she's commanded the attention of the media, ever since the Greens had Sarah Hanson-Young step back so people of colour could speak on behalf of our Australia that they wanted to be torn down and replaced with people of their kind. We've read comments on social media demanding she's kicked out of Parliament House and highlighting the woman hates this country. Then there's her partner in crime, the egregious Pakistani Marxist Mehreen Faruqi. I hope I mispronounced that. Both hate Australia. Faruqi represents a common phenomenon in the West, the migrant who comes in and tells us all about who Australians are and how we need to change. They complain of being marginalised while having a louder voice than any white Australian. And that's the thing about these, suggesting these two aren't fit to be in Parliament. It's exactly where they belong. The only ones who are forced through the ringer of the legal justice system in this country are patriots. The only ones they lock up are nationalists and those whose expressions are hardly dissimilar to these people, only they advocate for the founding race. Which should illuminate you as to what Parliament is really all about. That Parliament bequeathed to us by the Crown Mrs Thorpe hates so much. They belong here. They belong there. Far from being outsiders, they fit perfectly with the Western liberal globalist agenda which the Parliament serves.